all is anchored. This whole thing is anchored by our, esteemed Professor Jaideep Ghosh, who is a professor at the Department of Decision Sciences, Operation Management and Information Systems at Ashram University. He is also the program chair for the data science program that we have, and he has been a Ramanujan Fellow Scientist in Mathematics of DST, Government of India. Prior to that, he has been in consultative roles in the industry in the US for over 12 years, been an editor of several reputed journals, and a permanent member of the Academy of Management USA and the Academy of Information Systems USA. Also a core team in the ongoing World IT project, which is a massive collaboration project involving researchers and academicians from 40 different countries in the world, headquartered in the USA. And his current research and teaching interests include modeling and simulation in business and economics, mathematical finance, financial engineering, data science, and business analytics in large-scale socioeconomic and financial systems. So if you see, it's a very, very holistic, well-rounded panel, and we look forward to some fiery discussions. And we also would invite you at some point, to kind of pitch in with your queries and feel frank, and as we delve deeper into the subject. So with that, I welcome all the speakers, and over to you, Professor Ghosh.
Thank you very much, Rajat. Hi, everybody. A very warm welcome to all of you here this evening to the ACE webinar, Data Analytics for Strategic Marketing. I'm truly honored to serve as a moderator in this webinar, where I have with me here three very, as Rajat explained, very knowledgeable individuals. Industry experts. They are in the field of data analytics, which is, as you know, is a very, very rapidly growing multidisciplinary field, in which a significant proportion of the modern academic and industrial minds are concentrated today. I also thank the organizers, primarily Arun, Rajat, Rajesh, Shruti, Jyoti, and Mimi, and pardon me if I have omitted somebody's name inadvertently. Our main topic of discussion this evening is, as you know, data analytics for strategic marketing. Well, strategic marketing, as we understand it, is basically the use of marketing techniques to meet organizational goals. That's plain and simple. We develop and maintain a sustainable competitive advantage in that way. And along the way, we make high-level strategic plans, such as what things to market, which markets to target, which services to offer, and how to price them, how to promote them, so on and so forth. And we will learn a lot of interesting and important things from the panelists today, not only about strategic marketing, but also about analytics in general. And I think we have here an audience of very eclectic and diverse interests and background in the field. So, and at any time, this is mostly very, I'll really want to have it informal. And if any time any of the panelists want to pitch in with his or her opinions or interests, please do so. We are very, very informal here. So, for the benefit of the audience, let me start right away by asking Aparna what she thinks are the essential skills required for analytics work in the industry in general. Later on, we will come to strategic marketing in particular.
Yeah.
So, Aparna, yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Jaideep, and thanks everyone for inviting. It's a pleasure to be here. And before I answer that question, I just want to say, Dr. Ghosh, as you said, strategic marketing is something that we all need to deliver on. And I think before we comment on the skills, I just want to say that the reason why analytics, according to me, is something that's so important is because we are seeing drastic shifts in consumer behavior. and more so than that, what they say is not what they actually behave. So the traditional ways of collecting data or doing research are fast becoming insufficient to keep up with the consumer. So that's where, according to me, analytics plays a very important role of gathering all the data and more seeing what's happening rather than just asking the consumer traditionally what's happening from a research point of view. So in that sense, apart from having the skill sets which require to be comfortable in numbers, you need to be oriented with a lot of passion for that, and all the other accreditations that come with certain courses and things like that. So whether it's statistical modeling or a degree in data science and things like that, those are very clearly applications and degrees that you need to have. But there is also a world where you need to interpret all that data and make sure that you make sense of it from a business point of view to people who are not from that background. So for the students here, I would like to say that if you have a passion for research and understanding strategy, I think there is a way to be a nice blend between the two.
Okay, that's great. Dipto and Sandipan, you want to add your views to that? Dipto?
Yeah, yeah, Jaideep,
Yes.
this is Apan has told most of the things. A few things which I want to add to it is that two very major attributes of a person, perhaps what I think of is a person should be very, very experimental, because this is one field that if you are innovative, then you can excel into it. That innovativeness is very, very required. If it is it's not really, I mean, it's a perhaps presently a lot of things are available in internet and all, so people do try to be when using it, and at times become very mechanical. So that innovativeness, that experimental nature, I believe would be extremely important for, especially for all the students who are there. That could be extremely important for them. So this is one aspect perhaps I just want.
Okay, that's a very interesting observation. Sandipan?
Yes, I think everyone completed everything. I have nothing else to add from a preparation point of view that a student or even a veteran can make before diving into this field. So Aparna and Tripto has covered both. Uh, I think that at whatever point in their career, if people want to make a shift towards something as quantitative and as um, insightful things as possible, it's better to have uh, the knowledge of both. Especially, I would place the knowledge of business and the domain on a slightly higher ground than the knowledge of quant. So I liked what Aparna said. She said uh, a knack for numbers, essentially. So that's definitely required, knack for numbers. But that's that. Um, Similarly, I like what Tripto said, uh, experimental in nature. And that goes for the entire period of one's career, and more so here in quantitative analytics. But one does not really need to know a lot of mathematics, uh, algorithm, how they work beyond a point. All these things are required, but only up to a point. Because as I understand, the audience here are from the management college. So for them, they're not, at least from my standpoint, they're not writing any new, say, a new function, new activation function. They're not defining a new kernel, right? So those sort of deep dive into mathematics is probably not required. What is required and what is valued by all industries, how you can apply the apply model in that particular use case, how you can cross apply what you have learned in one domain, how you can take it to another domain, and finally, given a thing which is completely new, how you can apply some of the frameworks that you have learned into this particular situation. These, I would say, are three skills that eventually one professional should endeavor to develop. So, yeah, that's that.
Sandipan, that's a very interesting and encouraging remark. So let me go a little beyond that and ask what are your views about the interpretation? Sometimes, what happens is you may have a lot of technical knowledge, but you are not able to convey that knowledge to, let's say, your superiors. Let's say in a company where you're working, you may be a technical geek, but you know not have the appropriate skill to communicate, to convey your understanding, the interpretation of data to the management or the executives, or to that extent, even to clients or customers, for example. So, how can that sort of skill be developed?
Okay, so in India, language is a divider. So the knowledge of language, business English, and the knowledge of, let me coin a new word here, business Hindi. Okay, these two are very important. Now, people from not from these kind of background, they initially for a year or so would be a little bit lost, but that should not be taken uh, as a drawback or as a mark of their intelligence. And I don't expect for the first 2 years any data scientist or even an analyst to be able to master the communication. And now I don't mean communication being only knowledge, I mean the ability to convey a thought. I don't expect that to be done in the first 2 years. It will not be fair on any of them. I would say it's better to learn about the business if it involves marketing, if it involves sales. So, learn about the function in the field or in the drawing board when the copies are made, when the research are processed. Be an apprentice to the masters, right? And that's how you learn, and that's how you can try the connection between the quant and the business application. So it will come over a time. I would say 2 years is good time to be able to graduate into that kind of role. After that, even after that, if it does not happen, then comes your question, then what should one do? So I think it's better to do one of the two things. If you are working for a very big company, and if that becomes your bottleneck, that I'm not able to convey my thoughts or translate my thoughts into specific actions or specific insights for the domain, but it's a great company, it's a big company, I would say stick to the quants. Because if that's the, yeah, stick to the quants. But if even if you are slightly able to do so, it's going to create a lot of value for both the company and for the individual.
Okay,
Yeah. Yeah.
okay,
One should make an endeavor.
great, great. Aparna, about that, how do you train youngsters in your company? Some practical guidance for us?
Yeah, so I really like what Sandeepan, started the topic with Dr. Ghosh, because I think the fundamental understanding of the business pain point. So if I tell everyone whom I've ever worked with, you need to spend time with the stakeholders and understand what is the problem you're trying to solve, because a number in itself can mean anything. It's about how you're telling the story, It's about what is the business problem that you are trying to solve. So, to give you a very practical example, when I entered this field, I was new to media myself when I was in Star. And everybody throws numbers at you all the time, right? But I can say that, for example, we were trying to find out how to, get more of a children audience on our channel, which was a rerun channel, which was in, doing well in rural India on that network. So there are a lot of numbers that come in the presentation, but what we is something that I've always held dear with me is that make your numbers tell a story. And what is the key, what you call actionable insights in industry terms. So what is it that it is going to solve? So I can say that this channel has this many grps, or this time slot gives you this much share and things like that. But at the end of the day, the main thing or the main opportunity area was, the insight was that it's, kids content is only cartoons, kids content is also action films, kids content is also something else which generally they watch along with their parents. So that was the opportunity. And if your narrative is not crafted like that, it will not make sense to someone at the other end, and therefore it won't solve a business problem. So all the data needs to lead to that. So to me, developing that storytelling skill by understanding the business, the stakeholders, and the problems, and spending time with them, as Sandeepan said, I think the first 2-3 years need to really be focused on that, whichever industry you belong to.
Okay, okay. That's a good, very good piece of advice for many in the audience, I guess, students. So now let's move in to a slightly different direction. Uh, I have this question in my mind specific to strategic marketing. So, what are the returns on marketing and analytics? Say, when we attribute profit and revenue growth to the impact of, let's say, marketing initiatives. So, in this regard, we know that there is a very strong feedback process that plays, that plays a very important role here. So, can you tell us? Something, let's say, I am asking Dripto, can you tell us something from your own experience in the field about this particular issue? Dripto, I think he dropped off.
You may have dropped off. Yes.
Okay, so maybe Sandeepan or Aparna, why don't you start the discussion, and then if he joins in, and then we will.
I believe he has joined.
Okay. Dripto, can you hear us? No, he dropped off. So why don't we start? He will be around. So maybe Sandeepan, you know.
Yeah, a few years back, let's say even 10 years back, ascribing any marketing spend with a high degree of confidence to business performance, either better or worse, was very difficult. Nowadays, two things have happened. First of all, the data collection, because of digitization, has gone up twofold, threefold, and also the algorithms which used, let's say, neural networks, that it required a lot of compute power. But with parallelization of the compute, what has happened is those algorithms are entirely possible nowadays. So a Markov chain analysis, for example, which is very appropriate for ROMA, return on marketing assets, was something which, when we graduated from the B school, it was just a theoretical figure. Right? But those things are that can be done now. Those things you can measure, bit by bit, and you can say, okay, with a high degree of confidence, since I sent out this ATL, then there's a spike in the revenue. So those things can now be done. Also, we must thank Professor Banerjee and Professor Duflo for popularizing randomized control trials. Right? We do carry out sometimes those kind of experiments also, and I'm sure Zipto will be carrying out a lot of that. So those are also very good tools to say establish the causal effect uh, of what kind of variable is now creating a bigger lift in terms of profit or in terms of revenue. It has to be carefully designed, that kind of experiment, but it's entirely possible nowadays.
Okay. So, Dipto, we have been discussing a very interesting topic, which is basically the returns on marketing and analytics. Meaning, we attribute profit and revenue growth to marketing initiatives,
Right.
and yeah. So, and basically, there is a strong feedback process in play. So, can you tell us something? What are your views of this particular issue?
Yeah, first of all, my apology. It seems that the network is creating a lot of problem. Half the
Yeah.
things I couldn't really hear, but we can't help it. So anyway, I'll just give you one example. We did something for Unilever, which is a very pertinent kind of thing for these ones. It is, as we know, that for every product there is a process of premiumization or upgradation. People do start at a lower level initially, but they go for a premium kind of products gradually, be it in terms of pack size or in terms of quality, in terms of price or whatever it is. So we did a very pioneering kind of thing for Unilever. It's on we piloted it on washing products. Washing products is something where you have a huge variety in terms of quality, in terms of pack size, in terms of prices and everything. So the ultimate objective was to estimate what could be the likely premiumization with all different activities, including advertising, marketing, and everything else, at the district level of the country for those particular products which Unilever do have. So it was a huge data. I'll just need to introduce you to certain particulars data we actually used. We had our own. We still now we do have our own consumer demographic data. It's at a very granular level in the sense that we estimated your income, expenditure, your asset ownership, and everything, all consumer demographic kind of thing, even at the city ward level. Because and then what we did is we had all this particular data which we had. We had data from Unilever, their customer data. We had another panel data from Cantor. So that entire data set we have from all different sources, but it's a very rich data set which shows the consumer behaviors towards the washing products which is happening. And this Cantor data, as you know, that is a panel data, and that shows that okay, maybe 6 months back somebody is purchasing 500 grams of washing powder. Now they are purchasing 1 kg pack, or had gone to the higher price to another higher quality kind of thing. So we use that one. We try to see the consumer demographic, how it is, that causal relationship, that how actually it is happening, identifying the pattern that okay, this is what is happening, and try to see that why is this happening in terms of consumer demography and all other things. And there are certain your drivers and levers we had used. There are a few things that we know, that economic activities, all other things which are happening, which actually impact the consumer demography. But there are certain other things which are the levers, like your marketing spends, your advertising spends, the media kind of media which is being done and all that. So we could do that entire analysis because the data made available by Unilever. And I mean, so what I remember, it's about 5-6 years back. What I remember right now, that that this marketing strategy related expenditures is impacted the consumption and also the changes from normal product to a premium product, etc., to a substantial level. It's a very interesting project that we did actually, and I have seen the same thing in terms of automobiles. To some extent in tourism also, Sandeepan must be, I mean, he had a full idea about it. And I think that the way if people can start using the data from all different sources, make a meaningful analysis to it in a kind of a causal interfere. How do they interpret it in a causal relationship kind of a thing? A lot of things can actually come out of. It's really an interesting area, but one needs to make a lot of attempt, lot of experimentation, lot of innovative kind of areas people need to try to sort out this kind of a problem. So it's not really easy to solve, but it's definitely solvable.
Okay, fantastic, fantastic. That is very encouraging. Aparna, your views?
Yeah. I think Sandeepan and Drupto have covered it very well. There's just one build that I would have. There are two aspects, in my view, of return on marketing investment. One is predictiveness, which I think Sandeepan and Drupto both spoke about. That if I put this amount of investment, is it going to yield an increase in market share? Is it going to yield something else? So one aspect of that is in-housing all the data, having access to all the data, and as a company, at PepsiCo, that's why we've started this initiative of making sure that we test our data in the same way across the globe so that we can learn from it. And one very simple example is when we invest billions of dollars in, the campaigns that we do. Right, we make sure that we use market mix modeling to validate that you're saying this ad is going to do well for you, and is that actually leading to an increase in the sales and other marketing growth drivers. So there is a lot of investment in that kind of advanced modeling to make sure that we link whatever it is that we are clearing from an effectiveness point of view with actually what's happening on ground. So that's an example of predictive analytics. I think the other way that I would look at it is that when you look at marketing investment, you need to also look at possibly how much saving you get instead of, data science, data analytics really helps you understand your consumer very closely, and therefore you can customize much more than what we would have done earlier. So a very simple example is we were launching in PepsiCo globally a new variant of Mountain Dew called Mountain Dew Rise. And as Drupto said, we look at data that we had from stores. We look at data that we had demographically in-house. We look at our, panel providers like Kantar and other people whom we have tie-ups with, and we were able to figure out who is this consumer who would actually have a higher preference for this kind of a sports drink as compared to others. So it helps us customize the experience in each store, in our digital advertising as well. So it helps you also save a lot of money as again generalized sort of work that we would do otherwise, and therefore it helps you get higher consumer engagement. So I would also look at return on investment as saving and customization, therefore driving consumer preference, rather than just an increase in market share.
Okay. So one question that, as you were speaking, came to my mind. It's for a big company, if you're working for a big company, probably the data comes from that company. But think of a small firm, and they are trying to launch a product, but they are not sure, where they collect the data from. So how do you? Many students when they graduate, they start their own company. So when you are dealing with a big problem, big organization, that's fine. But for a small firm, how do they tackle that problem? It may not be easy. Like collecting what sort of data, where do the data come from? So how do they accept that sort of challenge?
Yeah. So Jaideep, I've worked in startups as well. So of course we've never had that kind of investment to do such kind of advanced modeling. So more often than not, if it's something that's very data driven, you make sure you have the talent in house to capture real time consumer data which is coming So suppose you're in a health, I was in a healthcare startup, and we were getting live data from consumers as to how they're using it, their habits, what they eat, what their sleep schedules were like. So we had people in house, and we had algorithms designed to make sure that we analyze that and figure out improvements and upgrades to the product. So the scale differs, but it's about, to me, how you use that data. The other part that I would, if we don't have the money to buy the data, for instance, there is, thankfully, due to digitization and everything available on the internet, you have enough access to a lot of external, providers, whether it is, Mintel or Black Swan and people like that, who are tracking trends on a continuous basis, who are tracking consumer behavior quantitatively on a continuous basis and releasing snippets of that. So in a startup, you just have to learn to put two and two together when you don't have the scale, in my view, and go with whatever information you can find and do it by trial and error if that works. But I'd love to hear Sandeepan and Ripko's views on it as well.
Yes, yes. Anything you guys want to add to that?
Yeah, the classic question, the classic answer in any B school, at least in my time, used to be, it depends. So it depends here also. If it is a so okay, let's talk about a startup which wants to launch a small personal use item, let's say for women, and that has a potential. I mean, the founder, he thinks that he can take it national or even global, right? If it is that kind of startup, versus there's another kind of startup which is trying to launch a SaaS product. So completely different, right? Completely different poles. Approach will also be very different. The first one will be basically a very hands-on approach, not just talking to women of any locality, understanding what drives consumption or what are the taboos, that kind of thing. To what Aparna said, there are many uh, freely available or with certain small price. There are many firms who are happy to do this kind of data sharing, or at least the trends. And one can obviously start very small in a hyper local environment and then take it bigger. As things grow bigger, one does find that the researches are easy to come by, especially because of various sites who are in the adjacent space, and then there are digital data which is available. Those footprints are available. There are various sites which allow robots to come and creep and take your data away, and that's perfectly legal. Those sites are generous enough to allow that. So those can be used. So data can be gleaned in those kind of environments in a very smart way. Now come to a different industry, which is let's say a SaaS product. This guy has developed a platform and now wants to understand that how this is going to be used, and he has many use cases to prefer on. So here I think the approach would be just talk to their customers. Who are the customers of your customers? Because there's a B2B business, right? SaaS is a B2B business primarily. So who are the customers of customers, and what are their pain points? Naturally, your customers are going to be serving to their customers regarding those pain points, and that's how you try and attack. So in this kind of environment, it's the strategy that comes first, versus the first example is start with something that you know. Start with something which is very local and within your knowledge. Try to get a hit out of that, or try to get an acceptance out of it. there are a couple of my friends who are entrepreneurs, and I've looked at their profile, and now, of course, some of them are slightly making big, but they started exactly the same way. Very local, try to solve a problem which people really care about,
Okay.
and there we will get insights and data. And it's not data that we want, right? We want insights.
Absolutely.
Insights can be gleaned from various sources.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Jipto?
Yeah, so mostly Sandeepan and Apunna has covered. One important thing I have here is, in fact, just day before only a lady called me up and saying that, okay, she's trying to launch an app. So can we do something on that? So this is something, I mean, which will come up for, I mean, especially for the students who are coming out of colleges, universities, and all. I have one particular point here to see that, as Apanna and Sandeepan has said, there is a hell lot of data which is available in public domain. Huge data. Okay, starting from government data to private companies' data and all. A lot of things are available, even for free. People can actually have access to that. And analytics can play a huge role in it. The reason is, what happens is you get a data. I'll give you our own examples. We used a lot of data which is from Census of India, from NSSO, from all other government primary survey data, actually, VLHS, RCH, whatever data is primary data is available, we used it. The skill what is required here is, one is that people do need to understand, if there is a primary survey, when you are fetching data from all different sources, how we can bring it into one single platform. That is a huge challenge. So there is a skill required into it. Second is, when you are fetching this entire data, we had data for somewhere around approximately 35 lakhs household data. And their spending, their asset, and all other things were there, which we used along with all other data, all macro data. You are starting from GDP to disposable income to private final consumption, expenditure, and everything to come out with a product. So their analytics is that played the major role, actually. How we can see the kind of a clustering, what is happening, how we can look into the models which can throw you the numbers so that you can estimate that, okay, this is the kind of product and this is the kind of expenditure people are making. So, sir, what you are trying to understand is where it is happening, how it is happening, and whoever be the customers, whoever be the people, how are they spending on it. So that is something where analytics can play a big role here. I believe it's one important thing. What I feel is that uh, uh, a year back we did a study for homestays. Again, it's from Sandeepan's area only. So we tried to analyze the economic impact of the homestays. So, but when you try to understand the economic impact, there are so many other things you need to establish it. And one of the critical part was that after coming to this online kind of platform, what is the impact is happening? Because that is the biggest challenge for them, because most of them, as you know, that they do not really know marketing that much. They don't really can spend that much of things, because many a times it's at the remote area. People do have 3 or 4 bedrooms. They have started homestays and all, actually. What we have seen is that if people are proactive, a lot of people are doing, they are actually trying to understand it from Facebook itself. That what is happening. That kind of data, they don't really know analytics. They cannot really fetch data from Facebook, scrape data from Facebook and all, from other sources. They cannot do it. But what they're doing is they're visiting those particular sites where they can figure out some particular information, what kind of photographs should be there, what is happening, and also that is what is their gut feeling that, okay, this is how we can actually get certain information which can be applied to our business. So
Okay.
I believe that proactiveness would be extremely important for any startup especially for people who are starting at a minimum kind of scale.
Okay. So that's great. I think there are a couple of questions from the audiences, but let's say we will keep the last 5-10 minutes for questions from the audience. I think Shruti is picking up those questions. But meanwhile, there is an interesting area here as to how you've been talking about data, how the data and process integration they work together in analytics. I mean, data is fine. We're working on data, but also there must be an internal process. So how do they integrate with each other, and how do you deal specifically with them this sort of problem in your own business? So let me start with let's say Sandeepa.
Yeah, it's a very apt question for my business at least, because the rest of the two panelists are quite marketing oriented, and I'm not too much marketing oriented. That's only 1/3 of my job. Rest 2/3, the consumer of analytics is really the internal stakeholder trying to make a difference with the customer. And there, the deployment of analytics and ingestion of data is very important. Both are very important. So what we're trying to do is, so I will give you a step, try to draft a step wise approach to this. So first of all, let's collect all the data, whatever is there around a problem that we can think of. And here is where a lot of domain knowledge comes into play. Once we understand after a lot of experimentation that what is important and what is not, then there are two objectives. One objective is to see that the data that we have collected as an input should be available at all times to the decision making framework, and that could be a model, that could be just maybe a software program, and it could be anything else. It should be available at all time without any manual interference if it is possible. So that's the ingestion pipeline. And the deployment pipeline is really where that's the juxtaposition of consumer experience. In our case, it often turns out to be mobile application that we have, or the website, or customer UI. For example, in our business, what's important is that we remind our customers at an appropriate time that they should now take holidays, because for long they have not taken a holiday. But if we just plain and bland we say like that, not many customers will say anything. So we will have to deliver this message to our IVR centers, to our customers in a very different way. And that's where a lot of data analytics comes handy. And those are like processed, and some are deployed to the mobile devices by way of notification. Some are delivered in a different way to the UI for the internal customers who are going to call up these members, or who are going to do, remind them of something. Some of them, and this is very interesting, is there's an event that we do, and which is a face-to-face event. And in that face-to-face event, that has to be delivered right on their iPad when they're meeting the customers, right? So, and that has to be done only when they're meeting their customers. So there's a lot of technology involved, how we geofence that particular iPad to the whenever they're visiting a customer. It's at that point that nugget of information is fed and all that. So,
Okay.
yeah, so that's how the deployment is very essential to the success of the program.
Okay. Okay. Aparna?
Yeah. So I think Sandeepan, the expert on it, discovered it very well. But from a marketing standpoint, and this is very close to the initiatives that I'm leading at PepsiCo as well. One of the key things in terms of getting the data, we have to make sure that all the data is, from at least I'm leading the deployment of the digitized insights tools in PepsiCo. So there we have to make sure that across the globe, all of the way the data is collected is the same, and all of it is therefore standardized in that sense, right? There cannot be differences in methodology. So that is one thing. And secondly, continuously from a process point of view, checking the validity when we in-house this data, making sure that it's being modeled and validated with the marketing mix data. And when we have data from different suppliers coming in, making sure that all of them are captured in the same way, are standardized in the same way, and made accessible to all the decision makers in an automated fashion, as Sandeepan rightly said. I think that access from a process point of view is very important, and someone keeping a watch over the integrity of all the data is something that's very, very important in my view. Otherwise, if something gets redundant, it needs to be cleaned out of the system. If we are refreshing something, the old stuff needs to go away, to just put it in a non-technical, more macro way. But I think that maintaining the integrity of it is extremely important from time to time.
Okay, okay, that's very good. Yeah, so right, related to that, what about let's say privacy issues, or for example, when you're doing data enrichment, so that brands are continuously doing today to enhance the data they already possess. Dipto, can you say something about that? What are the ethical concerns? What are the privacy concerns regarding the point that Aparna specified?
Yeah, it's extremely
It's
important.
sort of a very slippery
Yeah,
area. Yeah.
It's extremely important. I'll give you one example, which is, I mean, I work with HIPAA, okay, as a kind of an advisor kind of thing. So there are so many things which the government do collect. Okay, and you have, let's say there is a particular platform called Saral in Haryana. All services, services and schemes that actually should be delivered through Saral. It's an online platform. 547 services and schemes are under it. So anything, starting from your birth certificate to marriage certificate to a driving license, everything is under Saral. Another thing is that whoever is trying to access those services or schemes, they do need to provide a lot of information to the government also. So one big thing is that it's always on paper that okay, everything is safe. Always on paper that everything is safe actually, okay. But there's it's for government, it's a different issue. But for private organizations like us or like PepsiCo or like Mahindra and all, that is a big challenge actually. In many cases, what happens is that
I think he's having again connection problems.
hello.
Yeah, yeah. Yes, Dipto. Can you hear us? Yeah, Dipto, can you hear us?
Hello.
Can you hear us, Dipto?
Yes, now I can. Yeah.
Okay, carry on.
So this is one particular challenge that all of us do face, and especially where the data is collected or being handled by external agencies, there the stake is even higher because you don't really know who can misuse that particular data in what particular way. You have no control over that actually. So there perhaps every organization need to have certain kind of, I'll give you one example. Like I worked on with Samsung for some particular point of time, and definitely Aparna and Sandeepan will also be able to it. Their data privacy kind of thing is so stringent, so stringent. It's amazing. It's amazing. I mean, I didn't ever work on any of the personal papers research on Samsung server or something because I cannot get it. Once I leave Samsung, I don't have anything.
Yes.
So that is something that data privacy, the way they maintain that is seriously is a tremendous, it's a phenomenal kind of thing. I think that has to be there everywhere, be it government, be it private. It has to be there that okay, you are collecting data through so many sources, through so many people and all, but there has to be the system is to be something that it cannot go out. It cannot go out because the kind of information so at times people are sharing is really confident. It's really confidential,
Yes.
and that
Yes.
can be misused like anything.
It has to be. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely.
Absolutely. So let me ask the organizers right now, Rajat or Rajesh, Shruti, Jyoti, whoever is it that's monitoring us. How are we on time? Can we now move on to the question answer floor from the audience?
I think
Or should I
we're good,
continue?
and I mean, we still have 5 or 10 minutes to go, and we would invite the audience to kind of feel free to put their questions on chat. There were a couple of queries around, the scope for a fresher, and from the career perspective, especially for entry level, how do you get into the field? What is the potential? How can you segue from one line to another? So those are the kind of queries. So if there are any comments, and in the meanwhile, I'll also ask the audience to please feel free to add on more queries while the panel.
So Rajat or somebody, can you start the questions that have accumulated on the chat box? And the panelists will take the questions. Rajat, Rajesh, Shruti, or
I,
Jyoti,
I,
anybody?
I lost the audio for a bit. What were we saying, Professor
Oh,
Ghosh?
I was saying, can you start with the audience questions? I mean, we want to move on to the question and answer session. For,
Yeah. So I was
yeah,
just saying
so
that we have received a couple of
yeah,
queries
why
around
don't you
how.
start? Yeah, why don't you start? One by one.
Yeah. So
I
how would.
cannot see the chat box, so I will depend on
Okay,
you.
sure.
Yeah, yeah.
Sure. So the
Yes.
queries were around how a fresher can, get into data analytics. It's a vast field, and of course, it's very promising. And one thing is, you do the program and you get into it, but there are also lateral ways of getting into it. How does it happen? I mean, and if of course everything is now data driven. So from a fresher's perspective, how does one really get involved? What is a good way of trying one's hand, if you're like feeling a little gingerly about it, and so on? How does the business impact the FMCG sector? So these are a couple of questions. One is from the fresher perspective, the career perspective, and the then also the business impact on FMCG.
Okay. Any of the panelists can take the question.
Okay. Uh,
Okay, so let me talk about the FMCG. So analytics has to be an integral part of any business right now, starting from FMCG to automobile to your real estate, anything. So because I mean, if you think of FMCG, think of the fact that okay, we try to understand that what could be the likely demand for products and all other things. That is there actually. Okay, so we can try to understand, but uh, a demand for which particular location, who are the target audience, how to reach out to them, and unless and until you are extremely savvy in terms of analytics and you are using the data from the field, especially because to understand the psyche of the people, of the consumers, unless until you have certain data from the field, you cannot really come out with some kind of a conclusion or an insights which can be used for marketing or for sales purpose. That's extremely critical. I mean, it's required for distribution, it's required for supply chain, it's required for Salesforce activation. whatever you think of, analytics is the key for everything. I mean, both the data and the analytics are the key for everything. So I think, I mean, if you guys whoever are the students and trying to pursue analytics, I mean, that's the future. I mean, you need to. I mean, you should be extremely happy that you are in a time when you are being able to learn analytics this way. We could not actually. When we started, I still remember the first computer when I joined NCA. The computer I used was a 286, not even a Pentium. There was no internet.
Those days are gone. Those days are gone.
Actually. We used to run a model in the evening and used to come in the next morning to see the results. So that, yeah. So you guys are extremely lucky that the kind of computational age you are, and the kind of the software, the modeling etc. you do have, it can do wonder. It can do wonder in every sector, in not only in FMCG but every sector. It is an extremely powerful tool, and without which no business can run to. So that's what my submission is, that if you are into data analytics, learn it. Just simply go for a deep dive into it, learn it, and spend your time. You will excel into it, and definitely will contribute a lot.
So, Aparna and Sandeepan, anything more encouraging and more exciting to add?
So I think Dripto has captured it very well, that it's something that is the future. And I just want to add one thing, that analytics is used at every stage of the product development to the marketing life cycle also. So from where you start, which is what is the product concept that works, you have so much data that's there around what we call now social prediction, trend prediction also. So if you look at analytics beyond just modeling, there's a lot of scope because of the internet age that we're living in, because companies want to make sure and learn from all the data sources that they have. So I think from concept to actually making the testing it, to finally coming out with the product and which flavor to come out, then making the communication for it, then launching it in which area, what kind of sales activation needs to be there, what pricing needs to be there. At every area, I think there is a huge scope for analytics, and most of the large FMCG companies use it at every stage. So, and that also boils down to the question of, what are the lateral areas that we can look at apart from, core analytics. There is a lot of scope in actually understanding quantitative research. So there's social media. There is also doing primary quantitative research, where you can, dig your hands into and then understand, like Dripto said, there are Kantar does so much work in quantitative, Nielsen does so much work in quantitative, right? So whether it's innovation, whether it's content, whether it is brand tracking data. So it would be a good point to, if you're not getting into data science or statistical modeling, if that's not the inclination, this is a very good way to understand the business angle and how it fits into the brand strategy, in my view as well.
So listening to you guys, I'm getting excited. It makes me feel like I go back to school as a student. I started learning with Fortran 77 punch cards. Remember those days? Prehistoric days. So I'm from the dinosaur age. Sandeepan, anything to add?
No, let's go to other questions. There are many very interesting questions.
So let's, Rajat. Rajat, the next question. Rajat, can you read it?
Dr. Ghosh?
Okay, I can see that. Yeah, I can see that. Okay, no, it's gone.
Are you able to see it?
Yes.
I mean, let me just read it out again.
No, it just
okay. So I picked it. So it is, when you look at the panel data, say from grocery stores, supermarkets, is it from loyalty program data? Specifically, how are you relating demographics, psychographics with behavioral data? So that's the question.
Okay. that, I just want to make sure this question which was asked by Nikita Garg, uh, for data analytics, is it important to excel in maths? Is that question satisfactorily answered? Because, I mean, to me, especially to the audience that we have, that's a very important question at this point in their career. So I just want to make sure that question is answered well.
We haven't addressed that, Sandeepan. I think it'd be good to
Yeah, yeah.
agree with you. Yeah,
I,
that
I
yeah.
mean, at one point you said, it's not essential, but then we didn't go into any detail on that. So can you please elaborate?
Yeah, I just want to make sure that the audience here knows this thing, and this has been touched upon by Aparna in many ways from different angles. See, a data science team or an analytics team is certainly not one person. There are 3-4 jobs around it, right? And you can choose to specialize in one and then move to another, or just carry on with deep specialization in one. And out of those 3-4, only one requires an excellence in maths, and that is the core scientist job. Now, other three, which is business analyst, requires no mathematics, no deep mathematics knowledge. Basic arithmetic is good enough, and logical thinking. Data engineering, which is essentially softwares, but also a little bit of maths is required. Knowledge of SQL and NoSQL data, and how the databases are structured, what are different types of storage and hash tables, etc., etc. And then you have to have a capability of understanding how the model will work. So essentially, programming, fine tuning the model, um, coming up with solutions of the model. So none of these things require uh, excellence in maths. All of them requires math, but in different modicum. So I kind of put them in the ascending order. Least being an analyst, then data engineer, then with the developer of the program, and finally who pieces together everything, fine tunes. But the highest requirement is for the data scientist, who would see the patterns, who would design an experiment, who would say what is significant, what is not significant. So that requires mathematics. So that would be my answer to it. And all four are
Great.
important.
I
Yeah. Yes,
I just
Deepak.
want to add one particular point here that nowadays I have seen many people actually, because since things are available in internet and all, it's easy to run. What happens is people don't really look what actually goes at the assumptions at the back end, what goes at.
Yes.
So at times you go for wrong modeling for a wrong purpose actually. Are modeling or going for a purpose that itself they don't match it. Okay? So you come out with, obviously if you are running a particular model, it will throw up numbers, definitely. But whether those numbers are acceptable, whether those numbers should be treated for any particular decision making, that can only be understood if you understand that what has gone into the back.
Yes.
So that I believe is extremely important for every student, that please remember that it's not a mechanical job. It's not really a mechanical. I always tell people, whoever are working, that you are not a computer operator. I mean, if everything is given, a computer operator can run it actually. But if you are a researcher, then try to understand the entire rationale, entire logic which is there, why you are doing certain things. That's important for every student.
Yes,
Exactly.
that's true.
Very
If
good.
you are doing
Actually, yeah. Go
yeah,
ahead.
if you're doing any time series analysis, for example, if you don't check for stationarity, let's say in the first thing, so
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean that a developer should know this. That's why there's an ascending order, right? So to me, when I say excellence in maths, I'm thinking of someone who is writing those papers, and there are plenty of people in India who write. So that is real excellence. That is probably not required at a development level. But uh, a framework which I used in my MBA days for learning any subject is as follows. You should know what this subject covers. You should also know what this subject does not cover. Then you should know what are the assumptions behind this subject, and then the content itself. Okay, khatam. That's it. So if one takes this mindset to any subject, you will know the limitations. So yeah, I agree with Dipto. So that kind of thing is required for the developer who is really doing the development and selection of algorithm, that sort of things.
Yes. Actually, there is a downside to this because this from my own experience. When I see students, smart students, when they're learning the subject, they easily get carried away by the model, by the So somebody who is smart student thinks that if you cannot use the random forest algorithm, then you are not smart. So basically, it's the model that's driving the problem, not the other way around.
Yes.
So what happens
Exactly.
is sometimes they lose sight of the real problem. If it's a business problem, what is the real random forest is not the business. I'm trying to solve a business problem. Well, random forest is maybe a tool. I don't know if it's appropriate or not. So sometimes the students who are learning the subject for the first time, they get easily carried away by the force of the model rather than
Absolutely.
the insight, yes, that comes after it.
Yeah.
Rajat, yeah.
Sorry.
Yes, Sandipan.
Very interesting point here. Although I don't know if the audience would know this, that people make mistakes and then they learn. And thankfully, we have platforms like Kaggle and KD Nuggets and Data Camp and everything. There's so many things which are available, and it was not available when we were learning about these. We were essentially learning from a book. So yeah, make mistakes, guys. Right? Make mistakes. Experiment the hell out of it. I mean, you can right now sit in your hostel rooms and devote just 4 hours, and you will know what all things. What are the mistakes you could avoid. So a spirit of experimentation is required.
Great. Rajat, the next question in order. I can see one question.
Yeah, I picked one question.
Yes.
It is on how to use, in the pharmaceutical industry, what is the scope of analytics application in marketing? So, marketing perspective for the pharmaceutical industry. And there's another question on analytics in digital marketing per se. So, I think in some sense, both are related to marketing, but one is specifically for the pharmaceutical.
Anybody?
I feel, I mean, as I told earlier also, is it be it pharmaceutical or some other, whichever be the sector, generally ultimately if you want to sell your product to certain specific target groups and to target locations and all, without analytics this cannot be done. So that's the most important thing that we need to we need to do actually. Okay, so don't worry about the field or the sector that you are thinking of actually. Every sector analytics would be required because ultimately you are targeting your customers. Those customers have certain characteristics. You are trying to understand that okay, what kind of characteristics my customers should have actually. So you need to understand that and try to see that who are they, what is their strength, where are they living, how you can reach to them actually. Be it pharmaceutical, be it FMCG, or be it your real estate, it's everything is I mean you need to use your, these are all tools. Analytics is a tool. Analytics is not the research. Research is being done by a researcher using the analytics as a tool actually. So you have data and analytics, you are using it for marketing purposes. So every sector I believe it is very much it's required.
But is there anything specific, anything particular to the pharmaceutical sector in any particular? Basically the question of domain knowledge.
Yeah. So
General,
what if we have done a lot of studies for pharmaceutical sectors. Okay, so that's what I was saying actually, that the moment I think of that, okay, there is a particular company who wants to sell something, a particular specific product actually. So perhaps the methodology that I would be using for pharmaceutical sector and for the insurance sector cannot be 100%. It's a more or less 90-95% very similar. So 5%, 10% may vary because of that particular product do have certain characteristics or certain particular target group who perhaps you need to identify them through a certain particular technique which you may not really use it for something else. But at the end of the day, it is analytics. Your model may differ, your data may differ, the kind of information that you are extracting from the consumers may differ. But the kind of the moment you are thinking of the tools, it is ultimately the analytics. You are using certain modeling, you are using maybe certain clustering or regression or whatever it is, okay, or neural network. You are trying to understand it from that perspective that, okay, how to identify the consumers and how to reach out to them. So what could be the best possible? So that's what my take is.
okay. Aparna, anything to add?
No, I agree with Drupto here, Dr. Ghosh, because I think this is one field where you can, cross-functional learnings and application is much easier. So I wouldn't worry too much about having domain-specific knowledge when you're starting out. I think to Sandeepan's point also, this is the time to experiment. If one learning that I had in my MBA days is, dip your hands in everything, use your internships as a great opportunity to try and understand what you like and do not like, and don't be afraid to what it will look like on my resume. Your goal needs to be in this stage to learn and to understand what resonates with you, and what excites you about this field. So just go for it without worrying too much about domain expertise, because at the entry level that's not really expected either. So that would be my view as well.
Okay. Rajat, any more questions?
There is a
I think
there's a
yeah,
nice
sorry, carry on,
question.
Rajat.
I don't know how we are doing about time, but just wanted to.
Rajat, how are we on time? Rajat, you are muted.
Okay.
Rajat?
Let's
Yeah.
take this anyway.
Sandeepan, can you see the question?
Yes,
I
yes,
cannot see
yes.
that
I
question.
can see the question. The question is asked by Mr. Ramesh Saran, and the question is on data accuracy in data collection, and data security is a big challenge. We have whose big example we have seen in COVID, how we can handle these issues. So data collection, if you are working for a private company, so then there is no other way than to ensure that a the collection points are unbiased. That is very much required. And B, once the data is in, you have to make sure the data is relevant and data is fresh. Fresh means it could be 6 months old, but it should be relevant. Master data management helps in this in this kind of situation. A strong MDM policies usually takes care of the data collection, but in public policy field, and Joe has worked a lot in this area, so he would be able to say better. In public policy field, data will be dirty. Uh, that is more or less taken. Uh, but there are transformer models available nowadays where you can, even if you have a small caucus of clean data, you can use that clean data to identify the noise in the data collected in a larger framework, in a larger arena, and you can identify those noise, and there are possible to come little bit more closer to the clean data, which till now it was not possible. So there are a set of techniques which to some extent remove noise from the data. So that is my response on accuracy in data collection, but it can't be avoided. I mean, you have to just get better on it. For example, as you rightly said, Ramesh, that in COVID, one of the important things in COVID which happened in India is I have seen epidemiologists, and I know a couple of very good epidemiologists uh, who have been saying that the data which junior doctors write at the time of their rounds with the patients are just not good enough, and it is not rich enough. So if they are not rich enough, so how can we model, and the epidemiology entire field is on modeling. So that is a challenge. I mean, there's no easy answer. You have to just get better at that. Second is data security. I think if you mean data security at your end, at the processing end of stuff, um, it's very important. Dripto had spoken, I think, 2-3 minutes on that issue, and he gave an example of Samsung. Um, I personally have faced huge data security challenges, and with the coming of GDPR, even though it is in Europe, and India is still considering something like that, but we are trying to be compliant. We are trying, so we have legal expert now who only specializes in data security, and our IT now spends disproportionate amount of time in keeping the data secure within our four walls, especially in the work from home kind of environment, because that complicates the matter even further. So, step by step answer, but these are very two important points that you have brought, Ramesh. So I thought I should at least speak about it.
There is, I think, one other question. Is there any certified program for data analytics other than just going for an MBA in that field?
There are many.
Yeah,
There are many.
many. Yes, yes, Sandeep.
Yeah. So the best way to go about this is ask the open forums which one has helped people. So there are many programs available. Try to go for something that has more credibility, and anything more than that, if I say that, that would be seen as an endorsement. So, and I don't want to do that. But yeah.
So if there are no more questions, then probably I think it's time to wrap up. Any other questions?
I think Professor Joydeep, I think we are a little over time. So,
Yes, I think so. So it
so in
got so
case,
excited.
yeah, in case the audience has our contact details, in case they still have some questions for the panelists, so they definitely can post the questions to us.
Great.
So they are welcome. And thanks again to all respected panelists today. And it is a wonderful evening with you, a very thought-provoking discussion for the young listeners. And just wanted to have two lines from me. And the Academy of Continuing Educations conduct a specialized certificate program in data science. So for more details, they can just simply visit to Shivnadar University website and can search the DSAP program. And they can find more details on the program. And if they want to apply for the program, the application is open now. And with these words, I again thank the audience and thank the all participants and all the team who actually worked behind Rajat, Shruti, the whole marketing team. And thanks a nice evening to all of you.
Yeah, I also thank all the panelists, the organizers. It was a wonderful learning for me as well. And I will bring it to that experience, whatever I learned today, to my class. How about that?
Thank you, Jaydeep. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you all.
Thank you so much. Pleasure being here.
It was a
and-
Thank
pleasure.
you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I wish you a great weekend. Thank you. Thank you.